There is a lot of talk about all the stuff we want DICE to keep from the old game, so today I wanted to talk about the exact opposite of this. What kind of new weapons, vehicles and features we want them to implement that can be seen in the movies and that would make a good spot in the upcoming game. Let me just tell you guys here that I'm by no means a Star Wars universe expert, and the majority of my knowledge comes from the movies and reading a lot on the Star Wars Wikia, so I won't be speaking about anything from the extended universe in this video, simply because I don't want to say something incorrect and get a bunch of angry fans at me. Well, one of the first things I come to think of is the Magnaguard. This was a highly advanced Jedi killing droid used as General Grievous bodyguards in the Clone Wars, and I do realize that the Magnaguard did actually exist in the old Battlefront games, but it wasn't really like the Magnaguard from the movies because of many reasons actually. First of all, it didn't have the electro staff that the Magnaguards had in the movies, which is kind of the characteristic of a Magnaguard, and secondly, it had just as much health as a normal droid, and it blew up after a few hits. So basically it was like any other droid, to be honest, and it just had another set of weapons and looked differently. And I would love to see the Magnaguard being implemented more like in the movies, kind of like a super droid that would be unlockable on the battlefield, and it would actually have the electro staff and possibly even a blaster to make up for the low range. And finally, it should also be as resistant as in the movies. It might be hard to implement, but I think it would be cool if they keep on living if they got their head or legs cut off, just that you will lose some kind of maneuverability or sight from it. Another thing that has been suggested a lot by you guys, which I agree with, is the fact that unique ships from the Star Wars universe should be implemented more in the space battles. And what I'm talking about here is ships such as the Millennium Falcon, Slave 1 and Darth Vader's TIE Advanced. These could actually be implemented like some kind of unlockable hero in the space battles that one player per team can use, and they will have some special abilities unique to these ships. Just imagine being able to use Slave 1's seismic charges or homing rockets that you can see in episode 2. And depending on how they decide to make the campaign, maybe some of these ships can also have a spot in the storyline. While we are at the topic of ships, I think there's one ship that I would love to see added in the new game, which is the B-Wing. It might not have a lot of special abilities and such, but I think it's a pretty cool ship that was left out of the old games. And one thing which I would love to see more of is bounty hunters. In Battlefront 2 you could play as Jango Fett and Boba Fett, and these are definitely some of my favorite villains to play in the game, as they both have a really wide arsenal of weapons which you can unleash on the enemies, topped with the awesome jetpack of course. There is a whole lot more bounty hunters in the universe to add to the game, and the reason why I would like to see them in the game is because they bring a lot new weapons and cool gadgets to the table, whereas if you only have Jedis and Sith, they pretty much have the same abilities and force powers. I'm not saying I don't want Jedis and Sith, of course. I would much rather have those than bounty hunters if I had to choose, but I still think some variety to the game never hurts. And finally, I would like to highlight something which I think missed from the Geonosis map in Battlefront, which is the dwarf spider droid. I'm not entirely sure if this would go as a vehicle or as a playable super droid, but nevertheless I think it would be pretty cool to use this in the upcoming game, a bit like a smaller but weaker spider walker that has better maneuverability, to put it simple. Well, overall I think the old games did in fact bring up the most vehicles and weapons from the Star Wars universe, at least seen from the movie's perspective. But here are a few things which I would love to see more of in the upcoming game. Please let me know if there's anything you would like to see which I've left out of this video. Anyways guys, that brings this video to an end. Let me know if you want to see more of these kind of speculation and discussion videos by leaving a like on this video. And as always guys, may the Force be with you.